Tonight, our special coverage from Washington, the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States. The historic day at our nation's capital, Donald Trump taking the oath of office for a second time. His address to the nation vowing to usher in a golden age of America. Before a crowd of supporters, the new president signing multiple sweeping executive orders. His plans for border security, gender, and rolling back climate change initiatives. Today's ceremony moved inside for the first time in 40 years due to the brutal cold. Mr. Trump capping off unprecedented political comeback after 2 impeachments, 34 felony convictions, and 2 assassination attempts. And the moment earlier at the White House, the 2 former rivals coming together, even as President Trump vows to undo Joe Biden's legacy. Our full coverage from Washington. And late tonight, President Trump announcing he will issue pardons for the January 6 rioters. And Joe Biden, in his final moments in office, issuing several last-minute pardons of his own. The reaction tonight. Also tonight, the dangerous cold gripping much of the nation and the rare winter storm on the move tonight in the South. Our special edition of Nightly News begins now.
This is NBC Nightly News. The inauguration of President Donald Trump. Reporting from Washington, D.C., here is Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome on this day marking a turning point in America. Tonight, Donald J. Trump has become the 47th President of the United States, appearing just a short time ago at the presidential parade. Seated at a desk in front of some 20,000 supporters, Mr. Trump signed a sweeping set of executive orders, a rebuke to his predecessor, who he helped usher onto Nighthawk 46 earlier in the afternoon. Earlier, the peaceful transfer of power, the culmination of Mr. Trump's extraordinary political comeback. After defeating Kamala Harris and overcoming a range of legal obstacles that so dominated his years out of office. The inauguration in the House Rotunda bringing together both former presidents and prominently tech titans, occupying an informal but prominent role in the new administration. The same Capitol that was the scene of the violent attack by his supporters 4 years ago. After his swearing in, Mr. Trump declaring that America's decline, as he put it, is over, and painting a dark picture of the government and the country. The Bidens then departing by plane, symbolizing the end of an era, and Donald Trump's stunning return to the pinnacle of power. Tonight, just hours into his new term, President Trump delivering on some of the dramatic changes he promised. At a desk at his massive post-inauguration rally, signing multiple executive orders, what he's calling a, quote, revolution of common sense.
We won every swing state by a lot, and now we're going to go and drill, baby, drill, and do all the things that we've wanted to do and bring your costs down, your prices down, and make our country safe.
And in an emotional moment, the president greeting the families of Israeli and American hostages held by Hamas.
Now the work begins. We have to bring them home.
While earlier, some critics going after Elon Musk for this salute while thanking supporters.
Thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
All of it happening after that moment steeped in tradition, the swearing in of a new commander-in-chief.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
But from the ceremony pushed indoors by the bitterly cold weather to a presidential rally combined with the inaugural parade. Today was a unique celebration of a historic political comeback, Donald Trump's election as the 47th president, 4 years after leaving the White House as the 45th. It kicked off early this morning. Vice President Harris defeated in the election just 2 months ago, welcoming Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. Then President-elect Trump arriving with his wife Melania.
Welcome home.
President Biden telling him welcome home. The incoming and outgoing first couple standing for the traditional photo op. Inside the Capitol, dignitaries arrive, along with the leaders of top tech companies, past presidents too. While back at the White House, 2 men who have an intense war of words together inside that limo for the ride to the Capitol.
the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
Then, for the first time in decades, a swearing-in ceremony indoors. First up, the first millennial vice president.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
Then, 4 years after his election loss, when he faced fierce bipartisan criticism for his actions on January 6th, after running against 2 Democratic opponents and surviving 2 assassination attempts, Trump taking the oath for the second time.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Melania Trump holding 2 Bibles, but the president-elect appeared not to place his hand on them, which is not required. In his speech, President Trump saying he'll take on what he called a corrupt establishment.
The golden age of America begins right now.
With a blistering critique of his predecessor, who he did not mention by name.
My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
And referencing his dramatic path back to the presidency.
Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
Oh, beautiful.
Carrie Underwood then singing a cappella after what appeared to be a technical glitch with her music track. And that historic moment in front of the Capitol, now former President Biden, 6 months after dropping his own re-election run, exiting Washington, ending a 50-year political career.
You're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to.
President Trump then going inside the Capitol, where he criticized Biden for issuing preemptive pardons in the final minutes of his term, including for more members of his family.
I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today. He said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow.
As he greeted supporters in the spillover crowd.
I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs, okay?
And almost immediately, President Trump began to undo some of the policies of the Biden administration with a sweeping set of executive orders setting the tone for an aggressive first 100 days in office. Garrett Haake has more.
There are dramatic changes President Trump promised during the campaign.
With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense.
Signing a slew of executive orders on day one, including on border security, after more than 10 million illegal border crossings in the last 4 years. Trump reversing Biden-era immigration policies and declaring a national emergency at the border, where he vowed to send troops.
I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions.
The president also declaring a national energy emergency, which would expand his authority to encourage domestic oil and gas production already at record highs.
We will drill, baby, drill.
The president also seeking to rewrite the nation's maps.
We are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
And again threatening a showdown with Panama, vowing to take back the Panama Canal.
We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Today, Panama's president saying, quote, the canal is and will remain Panama's. Trump also reorienting how the federal government recognizes gender.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
With many of these orders expected to be challenged in courts and Congress likely months from passing supporting legislation, the practical impact of Trump's moves today could be limited. How much different will people feel tomorrow based on what the president signs today?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of it having teeth on it. Remember, this is a president that's been here, done the job before.
And Garrett joining us now. Garrett, there's some campaign promises that were not included in the executive orders.
Well, Lester, the president announced nothing specific today on tariffs, which had been a major campaign pledge. And meanwhile, tonight, the Senate just confirmed his first cabinet secretary. Marco Rubio will be Secretary of State, confirmed unanimously tonight, 99-0. Lester?
All right, Garrett Haig, thank you. And 10 of the executive orders announced today involve immigration, a cornerstone of President Trump's political identity. Gabe Gutierrez with that story.
Tonight, President Trump taking sweeping action on immigration.
And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
In those executive orders, Trump declaring a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires asylum seekers to wait outside the U.S. while their cases are processed, designating drug cartels, foreign terrorist organizations, and trying to end birthright citizenship, though that's expected to be fiercely challenged in court. The 14th Amendment says anyone born in the U.S. is a citizen.
We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
The Trump administration has promised major immigration enforcement operations soon. Possible targets: Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Denver, and Chicago.
We're doing everything we can to explore every single option to continue to protect our community members that are vulnerable right now.
Pastor Tanya Lozano Washington just canceled in-person Spanish services at her Chicago church, often attended by undocumented immigrants. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I think people are scared right now.
Still, even some moderate Democrats like Alderman Raymond Lopez say they support deporting migrants with criminal records.
If we can deal with those individuals that commit crimes in a very specific way and keeps other people safe, that's what we should be doing.
Tonight, these new policies already having an impact. This asylum seeker in Juarez, Mexico, breaking down when her initial screening appointment was canceled. The new Trump team immediately shut down the phone app that had scheduled her appointment. Now thousands of migrants like her are in limbo. Lester?
All right, Gabe, thank you. As you just heard, before the inauguration, President Biden issued a series of preemptive pardons. Peter Alexander joining us now from the White House. Peter, President Trump is expected to issue some pardons of his own.
Lester, President Trump late tonight signing pardons for what he said was roughly 1,500 January 6th Capitol rioters. It comes as President Biden's last actions in office focused on pardoning several high-profile names. From outgoing President Biden, what amounts to a protective shield for some of President Trump's most prominent adversaries. A series of preemptive pardons to avoid Trump's promised political prosecutions. Among the recipients, General Mark Milley, Trump's chosen Joint Chiefs Chairman, who later became a fierce critic. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who helped lead the country's COVID response, and all of the members of the bipartisan House committee that investigated the January 6th Capitol attack, including Republican Liz Cheney. Biden writing the pardon should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing. President Trump texted NBC News, "It is disgraceful."
Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster.
Just last month, Trump told Meet the Press the January 6th committee members should be behind bars.
For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
Milley's portrait, hung in a Pentagon ceremony just last week, was removed just hours after Trump took office. Today, Biden defending public servants who he says have been subjected to ongoing threats and intimidation for faithfully discharging their duties. Trump tonight also criticizing Biden for preemptively pardoning his brother James Biden and other relatives with just minutes left in his term.
I think it was unfortunate that he did that.
candidate Trump vowed he would appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Bidens.
To go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family.
Biden tonight dismissing the unrelenting attacks against his family as baseless, arguing they are motivated solely by a desire to hurt me. Peter Alexander, NBC News, the White House.
And I'm joined now by Kristen Welker and Hallie Jackson. Kristen, President Trump is claiming a mandate. He's got a narrow lead in the Congress right now. How long does a honeymoon typically last?
It's not going to last very long at all, Lester. In fact, he's only got about 2 years to really get his big agenda items finished, and then the entire political world will be focused on the midterm election. So he wants to get his mass deportation plan up and running. That's going to require some additional funds by Congress. By one estimate, $88 billion per year just to deport 1 million people. He's also proposed a slew of tax cuts, including extending the Trump-era tax cuts as well. That's going to be a challenge. And as you say, the majorities are quite narrow, particularly in the House. The biggest thing he'll be judged on, can he bring prices down? That was the #1 issue for voters, Lester.
Let me turn to Hallie right now. You covered the first Trump inauguration and White House. How does all this compare?
Well, look at the tone and the tenor that the president is setting today. He is out with this political show of force, what allies have called this idea of shock and awe, signing more executive orders and actions already today alone than he did in his entire first week in office in his first term. But look at the tone from his first inaugural to what we heard today. First time around, it was the American carnage stops right here. Now it's America's decline is over. He has been consistent. He said on the campaign he would do things like implement mass deportations and roll back Biden-era policies. He is doing so. President Trump has shown us who he is. He is continuing on that path.
Hallie and Kristen, thanks to you both. In 60 seconds, Richard Engel on how other countries are viewing a second Trump term and how his vow to put America first could play out. We're back now with the Arctic blast. Across the U.S., nearly 200 million people under cold alerts. And in the South, a rare and potentially crippling winter storm on the move tonight, expected to spread snow and ice from Texas to the Carolinas. Historic snow amounts are expected for places like New Orleans and Panama City. Also tonight, reaction from around the world to President Trump's return to the White House and to his messaging to the international community. Richard Engel reporting tonight from Jerusalem.
President Trump made it clear he intends to lead, not follow, and won't be pushed around or abide by old rules and norms. He suggested the United States would expand its territory. He's already said he wants Greenland, and today said he'll take back the Panama Canal. Of course, Panama is an independent country. So far, many countries are approaching with caution. His previously vocal critics, especially in Europe, have gone quiet. Trump described peace through strength. He made no mention of Russia, Iran, or North Korea, only China, which he said should not be allowed to control access to what he called the Gulf of America. This was not just America first, but America first and foremost. Lester?
Richard Engel, thank you. And coming up as we continue tonight, the new Inner Circle, the tech titans on hand for today's inauguration. And the return of TikTok after a weekend of uncertainty. That's next. Among the guests at the inauguration today, tech giants, including TikTok CEO. The Chinese owned app back online in the U.S. despite a law to ban it after President Trump vowed to take action. Savannah Sellers is with us. Savannah, walk us through this.
Lester, tonight, President Trump signing an executive order with the intention of saving TikTok. And it comes after a roller coaster weekend for the app, where it went dark for just over 12 hours, coming back online with a pop-up message crediting President Trump. Now, it's official. There are still open questions about those national security concerns raised by the U.S. government about the company's ties to China that led to bipartisan support for a ban. The company's CEO was seated on stage at today's inaugural ceremony. He was alongside a lot of other tech titans, including Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. They were all seated right among and behind Trump family members, and all notably men who have had an about face in their relationships with the president. Lester?
All right, Savannah, thank you. A passing of note tonight, Cecile Richards, one of the country's most prominent abortion rights activist, has died after a battle with brain cancer. Richards served as the president of Planned Parenthood, the country's largest provider of reproductive health care and sex education, from 2006 to 2018. Richards was 67. We'll take a break, and then next, the enduring images that strike at the heart of what this Inauguration Day is all about. We want to leave you tonight on an image that for many presidencies was likely taken for granted, a peaceful transfer of power. One president leaving as another begins. In recent years, we've been reminded of just how precious and fragile our democracy is. Today represents the most fundamental principles of that democracy, with Donald Trump beginning his second term in office. So if we take just one thing away from this cold Inauguration Day here in Washington, perhaps it is that the tradition and symbolism of January 20th means something not just to us, but to the world. That's Nightly News for this Monday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.